We are here with Samantha, and Samantha wears many hats, as I said before. She is current president of the Doula Service Association for BC, and she is a member of the Transforming Birth Luminaries. So we're going to be seeing her in our group on, well, tomorrow. As always, I love seeing her smiling face. And she has her own doula services, the Maya's Nest, and she's the owner of the Bellies Inc.
Yeah.
And a little bit about Bebo as well, you were saying?
Yeah, I'm also a doula trainer. So
yes.
Lots and lots of stuff that I do.
And a mother of three.
And a mom of three.
Like, I don't know how you do it, but you're amazing.
And what else do I do? Like, what else do I do? Decorate my house. I'm a wannabe potter. I spend about 3 hours a week doing pottery because I'm not busy enough.
Yes, and I want to see that pottery.
Yeah, then in the next batch that I'm here, this is one of the things I've made. You see it?
Oh, pretty.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Look at that. You're so talented.
Thanks. My cute little mug.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, because I know that it was going to be iffy for a while. You were saying you were going to possibly be at a birth.
Yeah.
That's the doula way. I mean, I will be there unless I'm at a birth.
Unless I'm at a birth. That's what ends every single invitation that we get. But yeah, she's still holding strong. So I have a feeling maybe tonight or tomorrow, but I was like, it'll work out. It usually works out, but just in case.
Oh, totally. What does your shirt say?
Oh, doula
badass mother helper. Love it. Love it.
Pretty good explanation of what we do.
Yeah. Can you give a quick explanation of what your role as a doula is? Because I know we're all different.
Sure. So when I sort of explain what doulas do for birth, I was like comparing it to like climbing the Himalayas, which, for a lot of people, it can kind of feel like that. And when people climb the Himalayas, they always have a Sherpa with them. The Sherpa is there to help explain all the different routes and all the like things you got to look out for, some, pitfalls that might come along the way. But they can't do the birth for you. You have to do the birth, you have to do the climb up. But the doula is there to make sure that as you do that climb, you have all the information that you need, that you're well fed, that you're taken care of, that your emotional side is being taken care of, which is just as important as the physical side of things. And then once you reach the top and you birth your baby, we're there to see that wonderful moment with you. I think having somebody be witness to that power that you have is very special and can be pretty life altering. And then we stick around as you go back down the hill into postpartum, making sure that you have a plan in place because, we do all these things to prepare for the birth, and then we kind of forget that afterwards you're going to have a baby. And that's when like the real tough stuff happens. And too many people go into postpartum without thinking about what they need to do to feel good throughout all of it. So that's another role that doulas will do as well. Does that kind of explain it for you?
That explains quite a lot, and that's perfect. That's basically what I learned when I was first finding out that doulas existed. Mm-hmm. And when my husband's like, how come we don't have one of those? I'm like, because I didn't realize that I could get one.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, we are, the things that make it tricky with doulas is that we're not part of the system, which is a benefit in my opinion, but it does mean that you're going to have to pay out of pocket for a doula. But like everybody who has had one will say how much they love it. And it tends to be the partner who's the most resistant about spending the money, but by the end, they're the ones who are like, never give birth without a doula. We just, I feel like we put a lot of pressure on partners. That's a whole other discussion. I love talking about partners and birth, but it's a lot to expect this one person who has no experience in birth to know all there is to know about birth, knows all the different ways to take care of you, knows all about hospital policy, knows how to ask all these questions, knows where to park the car, knows what kind of food you need to have, knows when it's time to go to the hospital. Like, how is that fair to put onto one partner? And really the doula is there to help them just as much. And so they tend to become, I always say it's sort of like a tag team where doulas just fill in any gaps that the partner has. And really the partner's only job in birth should be to love the birthing person. Like, that's all they need to focus on. And then let the doula take care of everything else. But there's a lot of little things to take care of.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, speaking of postpartum, so climbing down that hill, what would you be doing to help support the family after the birth? And what would you recommend that moms do for self-care after the birth?
So, when I grew up in the Philippines, I'm half Filipino, but that's where I grew up. That's where I sort of was first exposed to what having a baby was like. And in the Philippines, when we have our babies, the birthing person or the mother stays in bed basically for, it's not as strict as like some other cultures. So like in the Chinese culture, the 40-day confinement is much stricter, but they also have it in Indian culture. Lots of different cultures include this time to just stay in bed and take care of yourself. And the whole community comes around them and comes and nourishes you, both like with actual nourishment with food, but also nourishes your spirit and nourishes your baby and like cares for the whole family, right? And when I moved to Canada and I started, like, my friends started having babies, and then I had my own baby, and I saw what my friends who were had babies at the same time were going through. My postpartum experience was very, very different from what I would see a lot of my Canadian friends go through. And I think, in North America, postpartum healing is just not fully considered. Instead of taking that time to just rest and heal, new parents are like racing to get back into skinny jeans and trying to not look pregnant anymore. And, they're trying to get back to the gym for a lot of people, or they just are like trying to keep up. Like you had shared with me how, like, in your postpartum, you decided you were going to take care of all your sister's kids. What? Like, that is the worst thing. Why are you taking care of other people's kids? You need to be focusing on yourself and taking care of yourself and taking care of your baby. So, what I really like talking about is the tradition. It's called mother roasting, and it's a practice used in many different cultures. So, like I said, China does the 40-day confinement. They do it in Japan. They do it in Mexico, in Malaysia, and Indonesia, in India. And it's really just remembering that this time, those early weeks postpartum, this is a sacred space that you need to protect. You need to honor that need for your body to recover, for your body to rest, to replenish what just came out. Like, don't forget, you just gave birth to your placenta, which is like this super, full of hormones and nutrients, and it's now gone. So you have this huge hormonal drip, and you need to be able to replenish that. And then just restoring your body. And when I talk about restoring your body, I mean in its function, like making sure that it functions properly. It's not about like getting skinny. No, I mean getting your body to actually work the way that it's supposed to work every day, right? So mother roasting, it's when we talk about postpartum, we need to remember that it's not just the birth of a baby, right? It's not just the birth of a child, but it's also the birth of a new parent, of a new mother. And just like babies need to be held and nourished and taken care of, so does the mother, so does the birthing person. And essentially what mother roasting does is it's a practice that the practice of mother roasting is essentially keeping the mother or the birthing person warm. So it's actually like physically keeping you warm. And you do it essentially immediately after birth and then for the first few weeks after giving birth. So the idea behind warmth is it's definitely based on Chinese medicine. But again, lots of different cultures believe it, so not just Chinese medicine. But the idea is that you need warmth in order to replenish the empty womb, is the idea behind it. So, you just have this full of life, full of heat baby in your body, and then the baby's born, and now there's that empty space there. And part of mother roasting is to refill your body with that warmth. And what it's supposed to help with is to really rejuvenate the body. It helps new parents be more focused. It helps them connect to their baby more, because so much of what you're doing when you're resting is being skin to skin with your baby. And then it just nourishes them back into being a person again. Because those first few weeks, it's like you're so exhausted and there's so much going on that you kind of don't feel like yourself. So when you're able to be nourished and cared for, then you'll be able to get back to being you sooner. So there's different ways that you can include traditional mother roasting. Like they do massage, they do cook food for nourishment, so always warm foods. Herbal support, so teas are really good. And there are like people who practice it traditionally. So if it's something that you're interested in, definitely look for a practitioner who does it as part of their culture, because they're the best people to go to. Locally, there's a few that do postpartum mother roasting. But even if it's not something that you want to fully explore to like that degree of like hiring someone, there are still things that you can do to integrate that, right? So, some things that you can integrate into your postpartum plan to sort of mimic that mother roasting belief and that warming belief is, firstly, rest. And, they say you need at least 40 days. I know that sounds insane. Like 40 days of just resting, I'm going to go nuts. And we're not talking like you have to be in bed the whole time, but like just really being mindful of what you're spending your days doing. I think, I just see a lot of like new parents like will post that they went to Superstore on like day 4 as if that's something to be proud of. And really, that's not something to be proud of. That means that you just didn't have people to do it for you. Or you felt like, if I don't do it, then it means that I'm not doing this job properly. That as a new mom, I need to be able to do everything.
Well, in my case, it was because I had really bad SPD and hadn't been able to walk. And I was just really happy to be able to walk and get out of the house. But
sure.
My midwife still kind of did like this to me. She was like, I really wanted you home. What do you mean you're out shopping right now?
Yeah. The general, like I say rule, but there's really no rules. But the rule that I give my clients is the first 3 days, you're just in bed, skin to skin. You only get up to pee. So make sure you have like a laptop with a show or a book or something, because babies are cute, but they're really bad at conversation. So make sure that you have something to keep you busy. But you're really just like, just your underwear, baby's just in diapers, and your skin to skin, food gets brought to you. The next 3 days, you can get out of your bed, but you're still pretty much doing nothing. You're just maybe you're going from your bed to the sofa to your bed to the sofa. And you're still being, people are still like giving you all the food and taking care of you. And then the 3 days after that, you can start doing a little stuff. Like you can start making your own breakfast or, your own lunch or whatever. But you shouldn't be cleaning your house or anything like that for quite a while yet. And, that's a lot of people have a hard time with being able to release the mess, like to be able to live in mess. And if that's you, try to come up with ideas how other people can clean for you. But it should not be your responsibility. And I think, in North America, there's a real thing about like this nuclear family. And in Asian cultures, like where I'm from, there's no such thing as a nuclear family. Like your family is huge, And I think while it can be annoying to have a lot of family members, because oftentimes it's a lot, being able to have at least a community of people to reach out to help you is really super important. And so by asking for help, it doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong. It doesn't mean that you're failing at this new job of mother. It just means you're a normal person who needs help because that's what it's always been. That's what it's always been supposed to. This whole idea of doing it yourself, like being everything for everybody, that is in North American belief system, and it's not serving anybody but the patriarchy. But that's a bigger discussion.
Yeah. Well, we actually have a question from Jessica, and she wants to know, what about if you have a toddler already to look after when new baby is here? You can't neglect them. So how do you balance that?
So what I did when I had my toddlers was I try to keep them involved, but they still spent a lot of time with me in bed. So when my husband wasn't able to have the older kid, I would have the older kid in bed with me. And in pregnancy, I prepared a bunch of like new little toys and stuff that we could play in bed. I bought new books, and I just basically kept it all secret so that I could slowly bring it out for him. And, they also watched a lot of Paw Patrol. That's just a part of it. And I feel no shame in the fact that my needs as a new parent for that, those first few weeks meant that, they were having more screen time than they would normally. And then I also made sure to, my kids were in daycare, so I made sure to continue with that at least for the first few months postpartum, so that I would have a chance to rest and a chance to sleep and a chance to just be with the baby. And then we also made sure that while my husband was off work, he would spend a lot of time with the toddler. And then when he went back to work, we made it so that when he came home, he sort of just really amped up what he was doing with the toddlers. So his more boring, lazy time with me didn't feel too overwhelming. And then I also got help. Like I made sure friends would take care of my son too. So I'd have friends who would take it trickier now with COVID for sure. But if you have at least one family member who might be able to take them even just like 1 or 2 days a week, it can make a really big difference in your recovery.
Yeah, I didn't have a lot of help. So my niece, nephew, and my son all got hooked on Paw Patrol during the day. And even after the first few years, I mostly just had the TV set up in the bedroom and had video games going. Hunter got really good at video games very easily. And Michaela would just be in her fussy period because, they're even fussy at 21 months. Yeah. And during that one, I was in bed all day.
And, I think there's a lot of shame surrounding screen time. And I'm not saying that it's the best thing for them, but I think you also need to give yourself grace and understand that right now, that's what needs to happen sometimes.
Exactly. My kids are using screens right now, so I can do this.
Yeah, exactly. Mine are at jiu-jitsu. but my mother-in-law had to walk them because I had to do this. And then the other one's still in daycare and I'm picking him up right after. So yeah, it's just about figuring out how to get help, and then also realizing sometimes you're just gonna have to use the screen. Other things that you can do to incorporate sort of that mother roasting philosophy is being really mindful with what you're eating. So making sure your meals are really nourishing. So for example, there's this company called Feeding Mama. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but their food is based off of traditional Chinese culture of around the 40 days of nesting. So they're a really great resource if you're able to hire them or buy their food. Or you can even just get a meal train going from your community. So if you've never used that website, it's really awesome. So it's called mealtrain.com. And essentially all you would do is put up the dates that you need food and you put up your address. You can include if you have any dietary issues. And this is a really great way for friends to be able to help you without having to be in your space, especially right now with COVID, where you can't have that many people in your space. But your friends still want to support you. Your friends still want to help you. And it's something easy that they can do by just dropping off a meal for you. And it makes it so you're not having to do that. And when you're thinking about nourishing foods, warm foods are really beneficial. So lots of soups are really positive, like a really good thing for your healing. And then another tip that I often give my clients is when you're pregnant, go to all your close by restaurants, grab all of their takeout menus, or you can just do it online, just prepare it. And you find the ones that have healthier options, because what often happens, and I've seen too many people do, is they're like, oh, I don't feel like having our frozen meal, or, oh, I don't feel like cooking today. No, just get pizza again. Just get pizza again, because it's cheap and it's fast and it tastes good. But if you're eating pizza too often, it's not gonna be beneficial to your healing. So by pre-preparing some of your favorite restaurants who have good, healthier options, then it makes it more likely that you're gonna be able to pick one of those. Maybe not all, you can still have pizza, but not every time you order out, right? So that's just another easy thing that you can do to prepare during pregnancy.
And that's a silver lining to COVID. I mean, we've got a whole bunch more restaurants that are doing the takeout.
Yeah.
Whereas before they didn't have that option.
Yeah. And then there, you can use skip the dishes if you wanted, or a lot of them now have their own delivery, which they might not have had before. So yeah, definitely worth pre-doing that, because if you don't do it ahead of time, you're never going to do it. It's something you really have to do ahead of time. I'm sorry my volume's on. I am on call, so I just don't want to miss it if they do call. But
you're a doula. That's what you do.
Another thing that really helps is to get outside help. And we've talked about this earlier about if you have already a toddler and stuff, how does that look? And this will also be really dependent on your budget, of course, or your comfort levels right now with COVID. And when I talk to my clients about, having people come to your home, especially right now, I essentially just tell them, you need to figure out for yourselves what you're most comfortable with, what needs to happen so that you feel good about it. Because I had, for example, one client who didn't want anybody to come, and her husband was like, well, I think my mother should be able to come because she has so many grandkids, she's been through this so many times before, she's so helpful, and you get along with her, so why can't she come? And then I'm like, so what needs to happen so that you feel comfortable with your mother-in-law coming? And if you don't have these conversations in pregnancy, then they might not have time to do the things to prepare. So for example, for that client, they made sure that the mom was basically staying home and not going out a ton, so that they got more comfortable with her coming into their space. So think about those things, what needs to happen for you to be able to have a friend or a family member come and you feel safe surrounding COVID. And then of course the other option is to hire a professional postpartum doula. You had Rachel on last week. and that's her specialty. And postpartum doulas are really wonderful. Like they, while you're busy mothering your baby, the postpartum doula is there mothering you, in a not annoying way, in only the loving ways. So if you have the budget for it, it's definitely worth doing that. I also like to always mention that if you live in BC and you are Indigenous or your partner is Indigenous, then you may be able to get the Doulas for Aboriginal Families Grant Program. So it's through the BCAAFC is what their acronym is. But they give up to $1,000 to spend towards doulas, whether it's birth or postpartum. So if you decide, I've got this $1,000, I think it'll be more beneficial for me to have a postpartum doula than a birth doula, then that's great. They just have to be an approved doula, but there's quite a few of us who are. So definitely, if you're Indigenous, look into that. Another thing to do, again, remember that warmth. So sitting by the fire, having warm showers or baths, having your partner give you massages, that is warming to the body. Drinking lots of teas and hot soups, those all bring in warmth. And you know how after you have the baby, like everyone like focuses on like the frozen pads. I recommend my clients use it the first day to bring down swelling, but after that, no more frozen pads, because the cold is not going to be beneficial to your healing. Instead, you should be having your warm sitz baths instead. And you can do that with peri-herbs. So by stewing, is that what it's called? Steeping your herbs, and that can be really beneficial to your healing. So definitely think more warmth instead of cold stuff. And then the other thing that I, of course, will touch on is look into postpartum wrapping. So that's essentially what Bellies Inc. does, is we have the ab wrap, and the ab wrap was designed, the original owners, so I bought the business last year, but the original owners were a pelvic floor physiotherapist and 2 pelvic floor fitness professionals. One of them, some of you might be familiar with, her name's Kim Bopney. She's known as Vagina Coach. If you don't know her stuff, you should really follow her on Instagram. It's amazing, and she has all these like short courses that really help with giving birth. So definitely look her up. She's just called Vagina Coach. Hard to forget. But they were definitely inspired by the mother roasting tradition, and Kim actually grew up in Malaysia for part of her life, and that's where she learned about wrapping. But when they designed this, they really wanted to make sure that it was safe to use postpartum, right? So not only is it like beneficial from the outside, but really looking at the total package. And so, belly wrapping, a lot of people think of it like the same thing as waist training, and it's really not that, okay? This is, when I'm talking about the ab wrap, this is not a waist trainer. This is not a get your body back thing. As a plus size, full figured woman, I don't believe in that. Your body never went anywhere. Your body just did an amazing thing. You don't need to get it back. It's been doing super this whole time. But when we're talking about belly wrapping, we're talking more about the external support. And, there's a few different belly wraps out there in the market, but I'll go into it in a little bit, like what you want to look for when you're looking at a wrap and why I love my wrap the most, but I'm a little biased. But belly wrapping plays a role in a few different things when it comes to your postpartum healing. So firstly, it can really help in healing diastasis recti. So that's essentially the separation of the ab muscle. So not that I have a ton of abs, but like this is your belly, right? And this is the ab muscle. And as you get pregnant, as your belly grows, that separation gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And I was very shocked when I learned that 100% of pregnant people get diastasis recti. 100% means every single one of you. Now, of course, there are varying degrees. Some people have very minor ones, and some people have very large ones that need a lot of support. But everybody will have it to some degree. And a wrap can help give you that stability so that you're not moving your body in ways that basically counter it or make that separation larger. Belly wrapping helps in keeping the parent warm, right? Because of obviously the layers on it keeps that warmth in. It encourages rests. So when you're wearing the wrap, if you're moving around all the time, the wrap's gonna move around because you're not supposed to be moving around all the time. You're supposed to be resting. So by having the wrap on, it helps to encourage that rest to actually happen. It supports the pelvis and the tissues in the abdominal wall. It also helps with guiding you towards better restorative posture and alignment. So oftentimes when we're feeding our babies, if you're feeding from your body, oftentimes what happens is we're like just so scrunched up, right? Because like, trying to get this baby on and you're like, and we end up just being like this ball in our postpartum. I don't know if that's what you experience. That's certainly what I experienced. But by putting the wrap on, it just encourages you to, have that better posture that just helps in that restoration. It also helps the uterus contract back to its normal size. So because it's, sort of tighter, like it's not very tight, but it's tight enough that it just encourages that uterus to come down to normal size sooner. It can help improve circulation, and it also provides a lot of comfort and support, especially if you've had a cesarean birth, because especially like if you've had a cesarean birth, it can feel really like nerve-wracking to move and stuff. But when you can have that wrap give you that external support, it just makes it so much more comfortable. We actually had a midwife, so I'll quickly show you the band. We had a midwife so this usually goes on the back, but we actually had a midwife put this in the front. Let's see. Put this in the front, and it just gave her so much support. Like she loved it so much. So that's another way that it can be worn as opposed to the regular way that we put it on. Now, when you're looking at a postpartum wrap, there's things that you got to think about to make sure that it's safe, because while there's many out there, they're not all safe to use. So one of the first things you want to think about is you want to be sure. So I'll put it on. Wait, let me just take my shirt off. You get to see more of my shirt. But you want to be sure that when you're putting it on, they are putting it on from the bottom up. So most wraps only have like two pieces, and they go sort of one on top of the other. With this, you're putting it from the bottom up, which then lifts your belly up and lifts up that pelvic floor. So that if you have any prolapse, so that's a very common thing that a lot of pregnant people have, if you're wearing a wrap that like tightens your waist, that pushes down the pressure and actually makes your prolapse worse. Whereas with a wrap like ours, you're putting it on from the bottom up, which lifts up your organs and your uterus, making sure that you're not getting that downward pressure. You also want to make sure that the wrap isn't too tight. So oftentimes, some of the wraps they put on, it's like you can't breathe. That is not good, because again, that can push that pressure down. If it's too tight, it means that it's like, where's that going, right? You want to make sure it feels sort of more like a gentle hug and not like a super tight squeeze, okay? The wrap also needs to be adjustable to the torso. So you want to make sure that when you get a wrap that you're able to move it around as your body changes and depending on your body. So some people have long torsos, some people have short torsos, and to have a wrap that's just like one band, for example, that's not going to be able to give you that flexibility to work with your body. The wrap should also be elastic so that you can move easily and you're not restricted in your breathing. And then when you're thinking about like, when do you wrap? We encourage wrapping the first 8 weeks postpartum. So most of our customers bring it with them to the hospital if they're giving birth in a hospital, or they at least have it ready at home for as soon as they get home. And then you're wearing it 24/7. I know that sounds crazy, but you're wearing it 24/7. And then you're just gradually decreasing as you feel more comfortable and your body feels stronger. And then after those 8 weeks, we encourage you to like make sure you see a pelvic floor physiotherapist around 6 to 8 weeks, and then they'll be able to tell you if you need to wear it longer or not. I had mentioned that 100% of people will get diastasis recti in their third trimester in pregnancy. And some people even like stretch through the whole abdominal muscles. Like there can be some serious things happening. And, 45% of people say that they have like low back pain during their pregnancy and also after their pregnancy, and wearing a wrap can really help with back pain. And the spontaneous healing, so like healing without any extra stuff, happens in those first 8 weeks. So that's why it's really important to take advantage of those first 8 weeks, so that you're not going to need further intervention beyond that. And it feels like the first 8 weeks, like I feel like I've got enough stuff going on. So that's actually one of the things that I love about the wrap is, when we have our babies, we go straight into this sort of like, I don't know, what's the term? Like where we just do everything for everything. Sorry, yeah.
Mommy martyr system.
And we just like forget about ourselves. And I feel like if you're able to incorporate wrapping into your postpartum plan, then it's just a chance for you to remember to take time to take care of yourself. And really, it's something so small that you can do that can have such lasting effects on the way that your body functions, right? I'm not going to pretend that belly wrapping cures all DRA or pelvic floor issues, especially not by itself. Any wrap that says that that's what they do is a liar. The thing that sort of makes our wrap different is that it comes with the Core Confidence program, which is an 8-week pelvic floor recovery program. And you do it again in those first 8 weeks. And when I'm talking about the pelvic floor exercises, what I mean is like the first week, you learn how to do a core breath. Like that's the kind of exercises. They're really very gentle, and the whole idea behind it is just so that you have the external support from the wrap, but you have the internal work so that you can properly rehabilitate your pelvic floor so it functions on the long haul, right? Like so many times people make fun about peeing when they're jumping on a trampoline or when they're laughing, and that is not funny. Like you should not pee for the rest of your life just because you had a baby, whether vaginally or C-section, doesn't matter. And so you really need to make sure to keep your pelvic floor a priority in your healing. When we talk about birth, while it is a normal physiological process, we also have to remember that our bodies are injured at the end of it, right? Like, how would you take care of yourself if you if you broke a bone, right? Or if you sprained your ankle? Would you be shopping in Superstore in 2 days? No, you wouldn't, right? You would probably wear a wrap around your ankle at least, or some kind of support system, and then you would gently rehab yourself back. And that's essentially what belly wrapping is all about. And that's why I love talking about it, because it's something that people just either have the wrong idea of, or they don't realize how beneficial it can be.
Well, Samantha, I've learned a lot, and I really wish that I had known you back in 2016, because you would have kicked my ass and told me to get into bed. And you would have said it. You probably would have said it exactly like that. It's like, okay, well, when you have your back injuries, Carly, what do you do? Mm-hmm. I take rest. It's like, well, get in bed.
Yeah. Why do we not give new mothers and new parents the chance to heal and rest?
Totally. Yeah.
That's a bigger discussion.
But the thing is, I did take some time to rest.
Mm-hmm.
And after about 3 days, my family was like, okay, so when are you going to get back to it?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not. I'm taking a whole week off. Well, okay, but we'll get back to it after that, right? Because I'm not going to sit here taking care of you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in that sense, I didn't have it, but I didn't have my whole community of luminaries either. And I know that if I have another baby, I'm just going to call on all of you.
And you know, like that is tough when you don't have a family who has the same belief systems as you do surrounding that. But I think that most people sort of turn around to that once they get maybe a bit more informed. So having these discussions prenatally, that's why I really like that. To me, that's one of the best benefits about having a doula is that you have someone to help start those discussions, because it can be hard to bring it up with a partner or with, you know, your mom or your mother-in-law or whatever. But when there's someone else, like an outside factor, bringing it to people's attentions, it makes it easier to have those kinds of conversations, or you don't even think about talking about it. Like, of course they're going to help me heal. But like, what does that actually mean in like real life, right? Like they think those 4 days is enough. But you don't. And unless you have that conversation prenatally, you might not be on the same page, right? So have those difficult discussions during your pregnancy so that everybody is on the same page after baby arrives.
Definitely. I mean, I learned so much after my first birth, and then I learned even more after my second. And then just being in our community, I just learned more every day. And it's like, you never stop learning.
No.
And I would probably make mistakes even with my third.
Yeah.
If I have a third, I'll still probably need you guys to kick my ass and go, Carly, what are you doing right now?
By the time I had my third, I didn't. So I gave birth at home with my third. My only baby to be born at home. But I gave birth to him on Wednesday nights, and then the first time I left the house was the following Tuesday, but only like to pick up my kids. But I didn't even leave the car. I just wanted to see something else. And I was really glad that I at least took that week before I even left the house. And my recovery from that was so much smoother. And I felt more like myself so much earlier than with the other two. And that's even with someone who had tons of support, right? Like I had my mom come and live with me for 3 months. So I already had all that support. But even then, I still pushed myself more than I should have. Because I'm like, because my mom's visiting, so I don't want her to have a boring time. So let's bring her this place and let's bring her that place. And I was, playing tour guide, even though that's not what she came for. And she would have been perfectly happy to stay home the whole time, which she did with the third baby.
That mommy martyr syndrome that we have, we really got to kick that in the butt.
No.
Like
we just had a baby. Problem. Like that's a huge thing.
Destroy it. Yeah. Destroy the patriarchy, as my daughter likes to say. But Speaking of your son, I know you have to go and get him. Mm-hmm. And it is 4:43, so we can probably wrap this up. Yeah, I don't have any more questions.
If anyone does have any questions, just tag me and I'm happy to clarify anything. And then, of course, you've got your promo code for your community. If anybody is interested or has more questions around wrapping, you're welcome to reach out.
Yep, just okay, brilliant podcast. Wow, such insightful and informed wisdom here. Thank you, Carly and Samantha. Really enjoyed hearing you share your passion in caring for birthing families and postpartum care. Thank you. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.
I love doing these videos and I love bringing my friends on. I mean, we all love to serve. That's pretty much the doula way, isn't it? I mean, I'm not even a doula, but I'm technically an honorary doula.
I think doula is more of like a belief system, not so much like.
I think it's more. I don't attend the births. Yeah, I support up until the point that you go and give birth.
Yeah.
Yeah. But maybe one day I will.
Maybe one day you got to make it. One day, I think you should go to birth one day.
Oh, I would love it. It's you've seen my children.
Yeah. Well, when COVID's over and I can start bringing people with me again, I will bring you to a home birth.
Oh, I would love that. I would love that.
When COVID eventually ends.
Yes, it will end. It
I
will
know.
end. We just have to keep
Keep
faith on that.
Yep.
Keep faith on that. But you go and enjoy your night, and I will see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Unless you're at work. Okay. Bye, Samantha.